Hi everyone, and welcome back to more scary Reddit stories. If you're an OG of the channel, you know I used to do this quite a bit, and honestly, I missed it. So here we are back again with more Reddit stories. I hope you guys will still enjoy. I got a lot of good stories cooked up for this video and ready to read. And before I start reading, I just want to say, every author that I read from today, please go check out their work if you're interested in more stuff from them, because they are obviously all great at writing, and I don't take credit, I just wanted to read. But yeah, be sure to subscribe if you aren't already. My goal is 500k before the end of the year, and I think we can do it. Also, I have an Instagram and a Discord down in the description. You can follow me, join, we can hang out. But let's get into these stories. No more stalling. This first one comes from u/Gamel Frank. I'm a long-haul trucker. I stopped for a lost kid on a deserted highway in the dead of night. What I saw attached to him and the question he asked is why I don't drive anymore. This happened a few years back. I was doing long haul, mostly cross-country routes, the kind that take you through vast stretches of nothing. You know, the ones where radio turns to static for hours and the only sign of life is the occasional pair of headlights going the other way, miles apart. I was young, eager for the miles, the money, didn't mind the solitude, or so I thought. The route I was on took me across a long, desolate stretch of highway that ran between the borders of two large government territories. I don't want to say exactly where, but think big, empty spaces, lots of trees, not much else. It was notorious among drivers for being a dead zone. No signal, no towns for 100 miles either side, and prone to weird weather. Most guys tried to hit it during daylight, but schedules are schedules. Mine had me crossing it deep in the night. I remember the feeling, utter blackness outside the sweep of my headlights. The kind of dark that feels like it's pressing in on the cab. The only sounds were the drone of the diesel engine, the hiss of the air brakes now and then, and the rhythmic thrum of the tires on asphalt. Hypnotic, too hypnotic. I'd been driving for about 10 hours with a short break a few states back. Coffee was wearing off. The dashboard lights were a dull green glow, comforting in a way, but also making the darkness outside seem even more absolute. My eyelids felt like they had lead weights attached. You fight it, slap your face, roll down the window for a blast of cold air, crank up whatever music you can find that hasn't dissolved into static. I was doing all of that. It must have been around 2 or 3 a.m. I was in that weird state where you're not quite asleep, but not fully awake either. Like your brain is running on low power mode. The white lines on the road were starting to blur together, stretching and warping. Standard fatigue stuff. I remember blinking hard, trying to refocus. That's when I saw it, or thought I saw it. Just a flicker at the edge of my headlights, on the right shoulder of the road. Small, low to the ground. For a split second, I registered a shape, vaguely human-like, and then it was gone, swallowed by the darkness as I passed. My first thought, deer or a coyote. Common enough. But it hadn't moved like an animal, it had been upright. My brain, sluggish as it was, tried to process it. Too small for an adult, too still for an animal startled by a rig. Then the logical part, the part that was still trying to keep me safe on the road, chimed in. You're tired. Seeing things. Happens. And I almost accepted that, I really did. Shook my head, took a swig of lukewarm water from the bottle beside me, kept my eyes glued on the road ahead. The image, though, it kinda stuck. A small, upright shape, like a child. No way, I told myself. Out here, middle of nowhere, middle of the night? Impossible. Kids don't just wander around on interterritorial highways at 3 a.m. It had to be a trick of the light, a bush, my eyes playing games. I've seen weirder things born of exhaustion. Shadows that dance, trees that look like figures. It's part of the job when you're pushing limits. I drove on for maybe another 30 seconds, the image fading, my rational mind starting to win. Just a figment. Then I glanced at my passenger side mirror. A habit, always checking, and my blood went cold. Not just cold, it felt like it turned to slush. There, illuminated faintly by the red glow of my trailer lights receding into the distance, was the reflection of a small figure standing on the shoulder of the road, exactly where I'd thought I'd seen something. It wasn't a bush, it wasn't a shadow. It was small, and it was definitely standing there, unmoving as my truck pulled further and further away. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This wasn't fatigue, this was real. There was something back there, and it looked tiny. Every instinct screamed at me. Danger, wrong, keep going. But another voice, the one that makes us human, I suppose, whispered something else. A kid? Alone out here? What if they're hurt or lost? I fought with myself for a few seconds that stretched into an eternity. The image in the mirror was getting smaller, fainter. If I didn't act now, they'd be lost to the darkness again. God, the thought of leaving a child out here, if that's what it was. Against my better judgment, against that primal urge to just floor it, I made a decision. I slowed the rig, the air brakes hissing like angry snakes. Pulled over to the shoulder, the truck groaning in protest. Put on my hazards, their rhythmic flashing cutting into the oppressive blackness. Then I did what you're never supposed to do with a full trailer on a narrow shoulder. I started to reverse, slowly, carefully, my eyes flicking between the mirrors trying to keep the trailer straight, trying to relocate that tiny figure. The crunch of gravel under the tires sounded unnaturally loud. It took a minute, maybe two, but it felt like an hour. The red glow of my taillights eventually washed over the spot again, and there it was, a kid. I stopped the truck so my cab was roughly alongside them, maybe 10 feet away, switched on the high beams, hoping to get a better look, and also to make myself clearly visible as just a truck, not something else. The kid was small, really small. I'd guess maybe 6-7 years old. Hard to tell in the glare. They were just standing there on the very edge of the gravel shoulder, right where the trees began. The woods pressed in close on this stretch of road, tall, dark pines and dense undergrowth that looked like a solid black wall beyond the reach of my lights. The kid wasn't looking at me. They were facing sort of parallel to the road, just walking slowly, like they were on a stroll, completely oblivious to the massive 18-wheeler that had just pulled up beside them, engine rumbling, lights blazing. They were wearing what looked like pajamas, thin, light-colored pajamas, in the chill of the night. No coat, no shoes that I could see. My mind reeled. This was wrong. So many levels of wrong. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening, amplifying the crickets, the rustle of leaves in the woods, from a breeze I couldn't feel in the cab. My heart was still thumping, a weird mix of fear and adrenaline and a dawning sense of responsibility. I rolled down the window. The night air hit me, cold and damp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. "Hey!" I called out. My voice sounded hoarse, too loud in the quiet. "Hey, kid!" No response. They just kept walking, one small bare foot in front of the other, at a pace that was taking them absolutely nowhere. Their head was down slightly. I couldn't see their face properly. "Kid, are you okay?" I tried again, louder this time. Slowly, so slowly, the kid stopped. They didn't turn their head fully, just angled it a fraction, enough that I could see a pale sliver of cheek in the spill of my headlights. Still not looking at me, still ignoring the multi-ton machine idling beside them. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Not the normal kind of unease, this was deeper, colder. Animals act weird sometimes, but kids? A lost kid should be scared, relieved, something. This one was nothing. "What are you doing out here all alone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, friendly, like you're supposed to do with a scared kid, even though this one didn't seem scared at all. "It's the middle of the night." Silence. Just the sound of their bare feet scuffing softly on the gravel as they took another step, then another, as if my presence was a minor inconvenience, a background noise they were choosing to ignore. This wasn't right. My internal alarm bells were clanging louder now. My hand hovered near the gear stick. Part of me wanted to slam it into drive and get the hell out of there. But the image of this tiny child, alone, possibly in shock, I couldn't just leave, could I? "Where are your parents?" I pushed, my voice a bit sharper than I intended. "Are you lost?" Finally, the kid stopped walking completely. They turned their head just a little more, still not looking directly at my cab, more towards the front of my truck into the glare of the headlights. I could see their face a bit better now, pale, featureless in the harsh light, like a porcelain doll, small, dark smudges that might have been eyes. No expression, none. Not fear, not sadness, not relief, just blank, an unreadable slate. Then a voice, small, thin, like the rustle of dry leaves. Lost. Just that one word. It hung in the air between us. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a fresh wave of concern. Okay, lost. That's something I can deal with. Okay, kid. Lost is okay. We can fix lost. Where do you live? Where were you going? The kid finally, slowly, turned their head fully towards my cab. Towards me. I still couldn't make out much detail in their face. The angle, the light, something was obscuring it, keeping it in a sort of shadowy vagueness despite the headlights. But I could feel their gaze. It wasn't like a normal kid's look. There was a weight to it, an intensity that was deeply unsettling for such a small form. Home, the kid said, that same thin, reedy voice. Trying to get home. Right, home, where is home? I asked, leaning forward a bit, trying to project reassurance. Is it near here? Did you wander off from a campsite, a car? There were no campsites for miles. No broken down cars on the shoulder, I knew that. The kid didn't answer that question directly. Instead, they took a small step towards the truck, then another. My hand tensed on the door handle, ready to open it to offer... what? A ride? Shelter? I didn't know. It's cold out here, I said, stating the obvious. You should get in. We can get you warm. And I can call for help when we get to a spot with a signal. My CB was useless, just static. My phone had shown no service for the last hour. The kid stopped about 5 feet from my passenger door, still in that pale, thin, pajama-like outfit, barefoot on the sharp gravel. They should be shivering, crying. They were doing neither. Can you help me? The kid asked. The voice was still small, but there was a different inflection to it now. Less flat, a hint of something else. Pleading, maybe. Yeah, of course I can help you, I said. That's why I stopped. Where are your parents? How did you get here? The kid tilted their head, a jerky, unnatural little movement. They're waiting. At home. Okay, and where's home? Which direction? I gestured vaguely up and down the empty highway. The kid didn't point down the road. They made a small, subtle gesture with their head, a little nod toward the trees, toward the impenetrable darkness of the woods lining the highway. In there, the kid said. My stomach clenched. In the woods? Your home is in the woods? Lost, the kid repeated, as if that explained everything. Trying to find the path. It's dark. Yeah, it's very dark, I agreed, my eyes scanning the tree line. It looked like a solid wall of black, no sign of any path, any habitation, just dense, old-growth forest. The kind of place you could get lost in for days, even in daylight. Can you come out? The kid asked. Help me look? It's not far, I can't see it from here. Every rational thought in my head screamed no. Get out of the truck in the middle of the night, in the pitch dark with this strange child who wanted me to go into those woods? No, absolutely not. But the kid looked so small, so vulnerable. If there was even a tiny chance they were telling the truth, that their house was just a little way in and that they were genuinely lost. I don't think it's a good idea, buddy, I said, trying to sound gentle. It's dangerous in there at night, for both of us. Best thing is for you to just hop in here with me. We'll drive until we get a signal, and then we'll call the police or the rangers, and they can help you find your home properly. The kid just stood there, that blank, unreadable face fixed on me. But it's right there, they insisted, their voice a little more insistent now. Just a little way. I can almost see it. If you just step out, the light from your door would help. My skin was crawling. There was something profoundly wrong with this scenario. The way they were trying to coax me out. The lack of normal emotional response. The pajamas, the bare feet, the woods. I looked closer at the kid, trying to pierce that strange vagueness around their features. My headlights were bright, but it was like they absorbed the light rather than reflected it. Their eyes, I still couldn't really see their eyes, just dark hollows. I really think you should get in the truck, I said, my voice firmer now. It's warmer in here. We can figure it out together. The kid took another step closer. They were almost at my running board now. Please, they said, that reedy voice again. My leg hurts. I can't walk much further. If you could just help me a little, just to the path. My internal conflict was raging. My trucker instincts, honed by years of seeing weird stuff and hearing weirder stories at truck stops, were blaring warnings. But the human part, the part that saw a child in distress, was still there, still arguing. I was tired. So damn tired. Maybe I wasn't thinking straight. Maybe this was all some bizarre misunderstanding. I squinted, trying to see past the kid, towards the tree line they'd indicated. Was there a faint trail I was missing? A flicker of light deep in the woods? No, nothing, just blackness. Solid, unyielding blackness. And then I saw it. It wasn't something I saw clearly at first. It was more like an anomaly, a disturbance in the darkness behind the kid. The kid was standing with their back mostly to the woods, facing my truck. Behind them, the darkness of the forest was absolute, or it should have been, but there was something connected to them, something that stretched from the small of their back, from under the thin pajama top, and then disappeared into the deeper shadows of the trees. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a weird shadow cast by my headlights hitting them at an odd angle. Maybe a rope they were dragging, a piece of clothing snagged on a branch. I leaned forward, trying to get a clearer view. The kid was still talking, their voice a low, persistent murmur. It's not far. Please, just help me. I'm so cold. But I wasn't really listening to the words anymore. I was focused on that thing behind them. It wasn't a rope, it wasn't a shadow. It was a tube. A long, dark, thick tube. It seemed to emerge directly from the kid's lower back, impossibly, seamlessly. It was a dark mat, like a strip of the night itself given form, and it snaked away from the child, maybe 10, 15 feet, before disappearing into the inky blackness between two thick pine trees. It wasn't rigid, it seemed to have a slight, almost imperceptible flexibility, like a massive, sluggish umbilical cord made of shadow. It didn't reflect any light from my headlamps, it just absorbed it. My breath hitched in my throat. My blood, which had been cold before, now felt like it had frozen solid. This wasn't just wrong. This was impossible, unnatural. The kid was still trying to coax me. Are you going to help me? It's just there. You're so close. My voice, when I finally found it, was barely a whisper. I couldn't take my eyes off that appendage. Kid, what is that behind you? The kid flinched. Not a big movement, just a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening of their small frame. Their head, which had been tilted pleadingly, straightened. The blankness on their face seemed to solidify. What's what? They asked, their voice suddenly devoid of that pleading tone. It was flat again, colder. That thing, I stammered, pointing with a shaking finger. Coming out of your back, going into the woods. What is that? The kid didn't turn to look. They didn't need to. Their gaze, those dark, unseen eyes, bored into me. It's nothing, they said. The voice was still small, but it had a new edge to it, a hardness. You're seeing things. You're tired. They were using my own earlier rationalization against me. No, I said, my voice gaining a tremor of conviction, born of sheer terror. No, I'm not. I see it. It's right there. It's connected to you. The kid was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the thumping of my own heart, so loud I was sure they could hear it. The crickets had stopped. The wind seemed to die down. An unnatural stillness fell over the scene. Then the kid's face began to change. It wasn't a dramatic movie monster transformation. It was far more subtle and far more terrifying. The blankness didn't leave, but it sharpened. The pale skin seemed to tighten over the bones. The areas where the eyes were, those dark smudges, seemed to deepen, to become more shadowed, more intense, and a flicker of something ancient and truly alien passed across their features. It wasn't human anger. It was something older, colder, and infinitely more patient, now strained to its limit. The air in my cab suddenly felt thick, heavy, hard to breathe. Just come out of the truck, the kid said. And the voice, oh God, the voice. It wasn't the small, reedy voice of a child anymore. It was deeper, resonant, with a strange, grating undertone like stones grinding together. It was coming from that small frame, but it was impossibly large, impossibly old. It vibrated in my chest. Come out, now. The command was absolute. My hand, which had been hovering near the gear stick, now gripped it like a lifeline. My other hand fumbled for the ignition key, which I'd stupidly left in. What are you? I choked out, staring at the monstrous thing playing dress-up in a child's form, at the dark, pulsating tube that was its anchor to the shadows. The kid's head tilted again, that jerky, unnatural movement. The expression on its face, if you could call it that, was one of pure, unadulterated annoyance, contempt, like I was a particularly stupid insect it had failed to swat. And then it spoke in that same terrible, resonant, grinding voice. The words it said are burned into my memory, colder than any winter night. Why? It rasped, the sound seeming to scrape the inside of my skull. The fuck? Are humans smarter now? That was it. That one sentence, the sheer cosmic frustration in it, the implication of past encounters of easier prey, the utter alien nature of it. I didn't think, I didn't plan, I reacted. Primal fear, the kind that bypasses all higher brain function, took over. My hand twisted the key, the diesel engine roared back to life, a sudden, violent explosion of sound in the horrifying stillness. The kid, the thing, actually recoiled, a small, jerky step back. The expression, that awful, tightened, ancient look, intensified. I slammed the gear stick into drive. My foot stomped on the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning on the gravel for a terrifying second before they bit into the asphalt. I didn't look at it, I couldn't. I stared straight ahead, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, the whole cab vibrating around me. The truck surged forward, gaining speed with agonizing slowness. For a horrible moment, I imagined that tube thing whipping out, trying to snag the trailer, to pull me back, to drag me into those woods. I imagined that small figure with its ancient, terrible voice somehow keeping pace. I risked a glance in my driver's side mirror. It was standing there, on the shoulder, unmoving. The headlights of my departing truck cast its small silhouette into sharp relief, and behind it, the dark tube was still visible. A thick, obscene cord snaking back into the endless night of the forest. It didn't seem to be retracting or moving, it just was. The thing didn't pursue, it just stood and watched me go. And that somehow was almost worse. The sheer confidence, the patience, like it knew there would be others. Or maybe it was just annoyed that this particular attempt had failed. I drove. I don't know for how long, I just drove. My foot was welded to the floor. The engine screamed. I watched the speedometer needle climb, far past any legal or safe limit for a rig that size on a road that dark. I didn't care. The image of that thing, that child shape with its dark umbilical to the woods and that voice, that awful grinding voice asking its horrifying question, was burned into the inside of my eyelids. I must have driven for an hour, maybe more, at speeds that should have gotten me killed or arrested before the adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a bone-deep, shaking exhaustion that was more profound than any fatigue I'd ever known. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely keep the wheel straight. Tears were streaming down my face, not from sadness, but from sheer, unadulterated terror and relief. When the first hint of dawn started to gray the eastern sky, and my phone finally beeped, indicating a single bar of service, I pulled over at the first wide spot I could find. I practically fell out of the cab, vomiting onto the gravel until there was nothing left but dry heaves. I sat there on the cold ground, shaking for a long time, watching the sun come up, trying to convince myself that it had been a dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But I knew it wasn't. The detail of that tube, the voice, the question, you don't hallucinate something that specific, that coherent, that utterly alien. I never reported it. Who would I report it to? What would I say? Officer, I saw a little kid who was actually an ancient cosmic horror tethered to the woods by a nightmare umbilical cord and it got mad because I didn't want to be at dinner. They'd have locked me up, breathalyzed me, drug tested me, sent me for a psych eval. I finished that run on autopilot, dropped the load, drove my rig back to the yard, and I quit. I told them I was burned out and needed a break. They tried to convince me to stay, offered me different routes, more pay. I just couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that kid, that tube, those woods. Every dark road felt like a trap. I found a local job, something that keeps me home at night. I don't drive in remote areas anymore if I can help it, especially not at night. I still have nightmares. Sometimes when I'm very tired, driving home late from somewhere, I'll see a flicker at the edge of my vision on the side of the road, and my heart will try to beat its way out of my chest. I don't know what that thing was. An alien, a demon, something else, something that doesn't fit into our neat little categories. All I know is that it's out there, and it's patient, and it seems to have learned that its old tricks aren't as effective as they used to be. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? That question haunts me. It implies they weren't always. It implies that once upon a time, we were easier. That maybe, just maybe, people like me, tired and alone on dark roads, used to just step out of the cab when asked, and were never seen again. So if you're ever driving one of those long, lonely stretches of road deep into the night, and you see something you can't explain, maybe just keep driving. Maybe being smarter now means knowing when not to stop. Knowing when to ignore that little voice telling you to help because what's asking for help might not be what it seems. Stay safe out there, and for God's sake, stay on the well-lit roads. I bought a house in an abandoned town to get some peace. I think it's fixing me instead. This one comes from u/soft-statement7443. I don't know why I'm writing this. I'm not a forum guy, but I'm alone out here and I have to tell someone, anyone, just to get it out of my own head. So if I do go crazy, at least there's a record of it. I torched my life about a month ago. Job, apartment, relationship, the whole thing. I'm an architect, or I was. Had a full-blown burnout, the kind that leaves you feeling hollowed out, you know? I just needed quiet. Needed to start over. I found this listing online, a house going for practically nothing. The catch was its location. The middle of nowhere in a derelict 60s housing development that went bust. The town's name is Ethelberg. Sounded perfect. A place where the world couldn't find me. When I got here, it was even deader than I imagined. A ghost town of asphalt and weeds. Perfectly laid out streets that led nowhere. Rusted streetlights standing like skeletal sentinels. All the houses are identical, these sad little copy-pasted boxes, all of them empty and rotting. Except mine. Mine was clean. Too clean. Like someone had been here a week ago and scrubbed the place down. The first few days were bliss. The silence. I'd forgotten what real silence was. Not city quiet, which is just a low hum. This was a deep, heavy quiet that felt like it was pressing on my eardrums. I started unpacking slowly, starting to feel human again. That's when the little things started. The first thing, it was a picture frame, an old photo of my parents. I'd put it on the mantelpiece over the brick fireplace. One evening, I'm walking to the kitchen to get a drink. I stop, I pick up the frame, and I move it, maybe 4 inches to the left. The thing is, I don't remember deciding to do it. My hand just did it, like an autopilot thing, you know? Like when you're driving and you suddenly realize you don't remember the last 5 miles. But after I did it, after the frame was in its new spot, I felt this wave of calm, relief, like an itch I didn't even know I had was finally scratched. I figured, okay, whatever, stress, nerves, it's a new place, I'm just settling in. A few nights later, I woke up. Not because of a noise, I just woke up. Eyes wide open and pitch black. I wasn't in my bed, I was standing in the kitchen. The linoleum was ice cold under my feet. It took me a second to figure out where I was. I hadn't turned on the light. The only light was the pale moonlight filtering through the window over the sink. And I saw what I had done. Every can of food I owned. I'd taken every single one out of the pantry. Tune, corn, beans, soup, all of it. every can of food I owned. I'd taken every single one out of the pantry. Tuna, corn, beans, soup, all of it. And I'd stacked them. Not just in a pile. I'd built a perfect symmetrical pyramid on the countertop. It was flawless. I have no memory of doing this. None. The last thing I remember is reading in bed and turning off the light. And the scariest part, the part that's really messing with my head, is that my first reaction wasn't fear, it was satisfaction. I looked at that pyramid of cans in the dark, and some quiet, calm part of my brain just went, there, that's better. The panic didn't hit until I was back in bed shivering. Am I sleepwalking? I've never sleepwalked in my life, but maybe stress can trigger it, a new environment. I kept trying to find a logical reason. I had to, because the alternative was just not possible. But it kept happening. It's still happening. I'm not just sleepwalking anymore. I find myself doing things during the day. I'll be in the middle of something and I'll just zone out. I'll come to and I'll find I've spent the last hour organizing the books on my shelves. Not by author, not by title, but by the exact shade of their color, from lightest to darkest. I found myself on my hands and knees in the bathroom scrubbing the grout between the tiles with a toothbrush until it was pristine white. I don't remember starting, I just wake up in the middle of it, my back aching with that same weird, creepy feeling of a job well done. I'm becoming obsessive. That's the only rational explanation. The isolation is getting to me, triggering some latent OCD I never knew I had. My whole day is consumed by it now. Everything has to be perfect, symmetrical. If a coaster is off-center on the coffee table, it's not just annoying, it feels wrong. Physically wrong. I get this knot in my stomach, this rising anxiety that doesn't go away until I fix it. The problem is, it's working. The burnout, the anxiety, the reason I came here in the first place, it's all gone. It's been replaced by this obsession with order. It's like my brain has traded one illness for another. And the new one is so much quieter, so much calmer. I tried to fight it, I swear I did. 3 days ago, I decided, fuck it, I'm not a slave to this. I deliberately messed up the living room. I left a coffee table on the floor. I tossed a book onto the sofa instead of putting it back on the shelf. I tried to just live in it, to be a normal, messy human being. I thought I was going to die. It started with a headache, a dull throb behind my eyes. Then a noise started, a low, deep hum. So low it was more of a feeling than a sound. It felt like the house was vibrating. Made my teeth ache. I lay on my bed for hours, curled up in a ball, sweating. The pressure in my head building and building. I felt like my skull was going to crack open. I couldn't take it. Around dawn, I gave up. I got up, my head pounding, and I cleaned the living room. I put the cup in the sink. I put the book back on the shelf in its correct color-coded spot. I straightened the rug. The second I finished, the instant the room was back in perfect order, it stopped. The headache vanished. The humming cut out. Just silence. And that wave of calm washed over me again. It's not just in my head, it can be. OCD doesn't give you a physical vibrating hum in your house. It doesn't stop the second you align your books. This is something else. This house, this place, it's not just a building anymore, it's a system. And it has rules, and I'm learning that breaking them has consequences. And then, tonight happened. The thing that made me write this. I was in the bathroom, washing my face. I looked up at my reflection in the mirror and I saw my hand. My right hand, it started to lift. I didn't tell it to. I tried to stop it. I swear to God, I focused all my will telling my arm to stay down. But it was like it wasn't mine anymore. It was like watching someone else's arm attached to my shoulder. It moved slowly, deliberately. I watched, frozen in horror, as my own index finger touched my forehead, and it started to draw. An invisible pattern on my own skin, a spiral with straight lines coming off of it, like a stylized sun. I could feel the light pressure of my own nail. I was staring at my own eyes in the mirror, wide with terror, and I couldn't do a single thing to stop it. I was a prisoner in my own body. It probably lasted 10 seconds. It felt like an hour. Then it stopped. My arm dropped to my side. I had control again. I shakily raised my other hand to my forehead. There was nothing there, no mark, no scratch. But I know what happened. I saw it. I felt it. It's not just about the things in the house anymore. It's not about arranging books or cans. It started arranging me. I should leave, I know that. A sane person would be packing a bag right now and driving until the sun came up. But I can't. The thought of leaving this house, of leaving anything out of place, it fills me with a kind of dread that's worse than fear. The thought of the headache, the humming. And there's something else. The real reason I'm still here. Since this started, since I've been following these rituals, I've been productive. I'm an architect. I design things. I haven't been able to draw a straight line for 6 months. My creativity was gone, burned out. The other night, after one of the arranging episodes, I sat down at my drafting table, and I started to draw. It just flowed out of me. The lines were perfect, the concepts were clear, brilliant. In a few hours, I designed a structure more elegant and complex than anything I'd managed in my entire career. It was effortless. I wasn't even thinking, I was just the hand holding the pencil. I looked at the finished drawing and I felt that same familiar feeling. That deep, profound satisfaction, the feeling of perfect order. I think I understand now. The house isn't haunting me. It doesn't want to hurt me. It's fixing me. It's taking all the messy, chaotic human parts of me, the anxiety, the depression, the unpredictable spark of creativity, and it's cleaning them up. It's sanding them down. It's putting them in order. It's emptying me of the chaos and filling me with purpose. With structure. And that's the part that terrifies me more than anything. A part of me wants to let it. A part of me is so tired of the mess. My local theater recently screened a film called Mr. Blank. Everybody who's watched it has now gone missing. This one comes from Mr_Outlaw_. It's weird, right? Whatever, lol, might as well check it out. Haven't seen a horror movie that actually scared me in a while. That was the last text Lacey had sent me before she went missing. I know it's irrational, but I hate myself for not doing something, for not stopping her. But how was I supposed to know? How could I have anticipated anything that was going to happen after? The film, or whatever the hell it was, made its way into our small town like a plague only a few days ago. 12 people bought tickets for it. 12 people are now missing. Among them was Lacey, my girlfriend of over 2 years. At the risk of sounding like that guy, our future was looking nothing but promising. We have plans. Well, we did. Until Mr. fucking Blank showed up. This is nowhere near a conventional missing persons case, of course. The rabbit hole goes deep here. And honestly, the details simply don't make any sense. From what I've managed to dig up, this is a general timeline of what had happened. An option to buy tickets for the film shows up at one of the 3 theaters in our town, which is about a 20-minute walk from my house. And only that one. It wasn't available online, only at the front counter of the theater itself. It wasn't supposed to be in the regular rotation. Also, none of the employees at the theater were informed about any special screening. They simply came in and saw that it had replaced a 5:30 p.m. slot for a pre-existing film. And they didn't question it because why would they? The first and only screening was at 5:30 p.m. that day. The theater wasn't the busiest, but it wasn't empty either. Of course, most people opted to skip it given the lack of any information regarding the film. With that being said, the only people who bought tickets were younger, likely curious about the odd title. The film lasted about 1 hour and 10 minutes, with all the previews and credits considered. Pretty short for a feature, huh? At 6:40 p.m., an employee entered the theater for cleanup duty. What he found were rows and rows of empty seats with drink cups still in the holders and popcorn littered all over the floors. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Nobody had left or entered the theater after the film had begun, with confirmation from the security cameras. The theater itself had no cameras inside, so that part remains a mystery. The screen allegedly consisted of nothing but a dark static. That's what we were told, at least. I have a feeling that some details were left out from there, considering the fact that the employee in question is now missing as well, also rumored to have gone into a catatonic state after being questioned. The manager of the theater, who never greeted the employees that morning, as he usually did, was found dead in his office with severe wounds around his neck left from a plastic bike lock that was likely used to strangle him. A new employee was hired about 3 weeks prior. The other employees described him as a quiet but nice guy. He was working the day of the incident, and you guessed it, he's missing as well. Also suspect number 1 in the investigation. However, they're really grasping at straws at that one. I wouldn't doubt that this employee had something to do with it, but the logistics behind the whole situation just aren't cohesive enough to make that call for sure. Some additional details. No copy of the film has been found. No progress has been made on the search for the missing people. Hell, it hardly seems like they're even trying. The local cops have been strangely hush about the whole thing, almost like they don't want people asking about it. They literally threatened to arrest me when I kept pressing them for details. There's been a lot of vehicles with tinted windows parked near the theater and surrounding areas, some even in my own community. Well, that's the situation. I can't focus on anything right now. My brain is scattered and my anxiety's been going through the roof. Sue me, what the hell do you expect? Lacey has to be out there somewhere, right? How the hell is somebody supposed to just disappear into thin air? And what the hell kind of film was Mr. Blank? Christ, I'm getting a headache just thinking about it. My initial grief has been replaced more so by confusion and anger. I might just start searching for answers myself. I won't be alone though. Rose, Lacey's best friend, and Mike, her brother, are just as bent on figuring this out as I am. I'm not going in blind though. In fact, I have 2 leads. One is more of a shot in the dark, but the other should lead us somewhere concrete. I'll start with the former. A few weeks ago, I remember my little brother telling me about a strange man he saw carved into a tree. It was allegedly accompanied by messy and frantic repetitions of the word stop around it. I didn't think anything about it at the time, but it might be relevant now. Maybe not, we'll see. The other came up while I was searching for answers online. After feverishly posting about the film on what I considered to be relevant forums and yielding no answers, somebody finally messaged me about it, claiming that they had information that I might like to know. Luckily, they're only a 3-hour drive from here, and are willing to meet halfway. Is this a bad idea? Probably. Am I going to like what I find? Probably not. But the thought of Lacey being out there in God knows what kind of fucked up situation, I just can't help it. I'm not letting it end like this. And we're off. The person who had messaged me, online name ScreenGrabber22, told me to call him Jay, has agreed to meet up at a diner in a town about 1 hour away from us and 2 away from him. He seemed genuine enough while I was talking to him online, but intentions can be hard to ascertain over text. Still worth a shot, I guess. I'll do anything to figure this out. Mike was all in from the get-go. I suppose I felt safer with him around given the fact that he stood at 6'2", 200 plus pounds, boasting a 650 pound deadlift, and a borderline obsession with both French kickboxing and long-range shooting. Obviously, he didn't like the idea that something might be happening to his sister. Hell, I had to stay on my toes just to stop him from knocking me out when he found out Lacey and I were first dating. He was also pissed as hell at both his parents for being so complacent about the situation, and the cops for not yielding any results. On the other hand, Rose was wary about the situation at first. Couldn't blame her, really. This shit was weird. But at the end of the day, we all really wanted to find Lacey. Enough so to venture off into what was ostensibly a dangerous unknown. The drive over was uneventful, which I suppose was a good thing. I had a feeling that the humdrum nature of our little trip wasn't going to last though. What a seedy-ass place, Mike stated as he stepped out of the vehicle. I couldn't disagree. Flickering fluorescent lights, peeling paint, and a nearly empty parking lot. A place that truly hadn't caught up with the times. Guy was probably bullshitting about knowing anything, Mike continued. If you got us out here to try something, guess I'll blow off some steam by stomping his shit in. I expected nothing less from him. Anything to find Lacey, but don't do anything stupid. I know you're gonna, Rose said, before taking the lead and heading toward the entrance. Hey, wait up, Mike called out, running after her. I took a deep breath before following suit. This was happening. We were taking matters into our own hands. The place was sparsely populated inside, about 6 other people in total. Green hoodie, black hat, I muttered to myself. Jay's outfit of choice, apparently. It didn't take long to spot him. I was relatively relieved upon realizing he was on the younger side. He looked just slightly older than us, probably early 20s or late teens. Nothing terribly noteworthy about his appearance, a skinny guy with medium-length, dirty blonde hair. "Jay?" I asked, approaching his table. When he looked up, I realized that there was something off about him. His eyes, they looked a little unhinged. Low-key, though, that's a strong way of describing it, I guess. But there's a reason why that was the first word that popped into my head when my pupils met his. He gave me a slight smile before awkwardly gesturing for us to sit. "So," he said, taking a sip of his coffee. His movements were also rather jittery. "You want to know about the movie?" We all nodded at once. He let out a weird noise, something like halfway between a sneer and a cough. "But why? How do you even know about it to begin with?" "Does it matter why?" Mike spoke up. "We just want to know. Don't tell me you're about to waste our time." He tended to get quite dramatic sometimes. "I'll tell you what you need to know," Jay said, after a few moments of silence. "Alright, get on with it. You guys need to drop it. Stop thinking about it." "Christ," Mike said. "What the hell did I just say?" "I'm not wasting your time," Jay responded. "I'm saving your lives." Just as Mike seemed to be reaching his wit's end, which wasn't hard to get to, mind you, Rose chimed in. "What do you mean?" she said. "Look, our friend went missing. We're not leaving without something, please." Her tone was a lot softer, which seemed to calm Jay down. "I'm sorry that happened," he said, "but I don't think you're going to find her." "Son of a bitch," Mike said, slamming the table. Jay flinched at the action. "Look, I've given you the best advice that I can. Just leave it alone." "If that was the case, you wouldn't have agreed to meet up. There's clearly something that you feel we should know," I said. "No," Jay shook his head. "If I left it like that, you would have kept digging deeper. I called you here to convince you to let it go." "Not gonna happen," Mike said. "So either you tell us something, or you say goodbye to your teeth." "Ignore him," I chimed in. "But you gotta tell us something, like what the hell Mr. Blank is supposed to be." I was getting desperate. My hopes had been spiked, perhaps to an unreasonably high degree, but I still wasn't prepared to just leave it at that. I needed something. I could see Jay's bottom lip quiver just slightly upon hearing the question. He muttered. It looks as if he could hardly muster up an answer. He looked terrified, which in turn terrified me. At one point, it seemed as if he were about to cry, but he took a deep breath, seemingly calming himself down. "So you guys aren't gonna let this go?" I shook my head. "How are we supposed to?" He clicked his tongue in a frustrated tone. His previous face of distress had morphed into something more comparable to anger, as if this whole situation was beginning to bother him something great. "Okay, I guess you forced my hand." He whispered something under his breath. Sounded relatively aggressive. Truth be told, Jay's reservation toward the situation was only spiking my interest even more. What was he so afraid of? He gestured towards the exit. "Follow me then, I'll show you something." It was nearly a mutter. "Follow you," I thought. Alright then. I'm not a total idiot. The red flags were sticking out like sore thumbs. But at the end of the day, I suppose this is exactly what we were asking for. In my pocket, I gripped the stiletto knife from Italy that Lacey had gotten me a few months back. Just in case, you know. With all of us on high alert, we walked out of the diner and began following Jay's beat-up Jeep. The subsequent drive wasn't long, probably only around 3 to 4 minutes. An inherent symptom of small towns, I guess. He led us to a small motel. Looked kinda dingy, but not terribly so. Nevertheless, it was another cause for concern. He only lived 2 hours away. Why stay the night? He sighed as he exited the vehicle, gesturing us to move up the stairs. We ascended 3 floors and walked past a few doors before arriving at his room. Mike and Rose walked in first, and then I followed. Big mistake. "So, what did you want to—" Before I could even finish my sentence, my vision went black. I'm not sure how long I was knocked out for, but when I came to, I was lying on the couch, nursing a splitting headache. "Yo, he's awake!" Mike's booming voice felt like a hammer to my brain. I looked up and saw him holding Jay in a headlock. There was a baseball bat lying a few feet away from them. Rose was standing at the foot of the couch, looking relieved that I wasn't dead. "Oh, thank God," she said. You won't be thanking anybody else once he shows up." "I'm trying to save you fucking idiots," Jay rasped out, struggling for air. What happened wasn't exactly a mystery. Jay had tried taking my head off with the damn bat. With my brain still reeling, I pulled myself off the couch and approached him, all while he struggled against Mike's python arms. "So," I said, still wincing, "what the fuck was that?" Jay's face was starting to go beet red, so I gestured for Mike to loosen his grip. He began pantsing like hell upon being released. "Who the hell is Mr. Blank?" I asked. "I'll ask you one more time, or do you want to explain to the cops why the hell you just fucking assaulted me?" His expression had changed drastically. Not so angry anymore, he looked more defeated. I tried," he said in a hoarse voice. "Tried to do what? To save you people, to save myself. So what the hell was your plan? Knock us out and then what?" "I don't know," he said, nearly in hysterics. "I panicked, didn't know what to do, but I had to get you guys to stop somehow. You forced me to." "I get it now," Mike said. "You're a crazy guy. We've been talking to a psycho. Good job, guys." Was that it? I thought to myself. Were we just wasting our time talking to a guy who had clearly gone off the deep end? I wasn't so sure. I'd had encounters with the criminally insane before. My father had worked security at a psychiatric ward, and I'd visited him there a few times before. This guy, he just didn't fit the bill. I suppose his words sounded genuine. Of course, I couldn't know for sure, so I remained cautious. Jay slumped against a wall, tilting his head back against it. "I could never escape him," he said. "I don't think anybody ever does." "Who?" I asked, already expecting the answer I was about to receive. He looked over at me directly. "Mr. Blank." His voice quivered. It seemed as if merely saying the name caused him a great deal of discomfort. "I don't know where he came from, what he even is." We kept quiet as he talked. We were finally getting what we came here for. "He's incomprehensible. Imagine the worst, most visceral nightmare you've ever had. That's nothing compared to an encounter with him. He's incomprehensible. Imagine the worst, most visceral nightmare you've ever had. That's nothing compared to an encounter with him. You can't outrun him. You can't kill him. Can't deal with him in any way, and once he's after you, he won't stop. You just have to pray that you never meet him." A look of absolute grief suddenly washed over his face. "But it's too late now. You've pried too hard. He's already on his way." "You want to elaborate on that?" I asked. He smirked at the question. It was one that unsettled me to my core. The smile wasn't one of joy or relief, not even close. It was more comparable to a smile that somebody in great pain would make upon learning that their misery would soon be coming to an end. "I shouldn't have spoken his name again, but I guess it doesn't matter. This is the end of the line for me." Suddenly, as if he were possessed, he drilled his elbow into Mike's ribs and began scrambling away from him. He barreled past me and into the washroom. Before I could try and stop him myself, he'd locked himself in there. "Shit," I muttered. I began banging on the bathroom door. "What the hell are you doing?" "I tried talking some sense into you. This is my punishment for failing." "What are you talking about, man? Come on, we'll figure it out." "I can't deal with what happens next," he said through the wood. "My nightmare ends here. I'll pray that your suffering ends up being less than mine." A short silence followed. "I'll pray for your friend as well. I suggest you do the same." "Come on, don't do anything stupid." Too late. I heard his body slump to the ground moments later. When we finally got the door open, Jay was lying limp on the floor with an empty, unlabeled pill bottle beside him. "Fucking hell," Mike said, sounding frustrated. "Jeez," Rose added, looking understandably horrified. "What the hell do we do now? Do we call the cops or something?" "Fuck no," Mike replied. "I'm not dealing with that. Let them find the guy themselves. He overdosed, simple as that." He turned to me. "You're not bleeding, are you?" I touched the back of my head. Dry. I shook my head. "Good. No blood, no suspicion," Mike said. "Let's get the hell out of here then." "That's not how it works. We also busted the bathroom door down, remember?" He seemed to think about it for a second, before coming to his final, profound conclusion. Fuck it. I had my own reservations about leaving the situation the way it was, but Mike was already out the door before I could say anything else. In the moment, there was nothing I could do but follow him. Call it selfish, but the situation was beyond helping at that point. But if you asked me if I felt somewhat responsible for Jay's death, then I'd have to answer in the affirmative. The feeling in my stomach as we walked to the car was not a good one. The drive back was relatively silent. We'd gotten next to no answers, had a hell of a lot more questions, and had just witnessed a fucking suicide. On top of that, there was somebody following us. I don't think either Mike or Rose had noticed it. The driver was doing a good job of being discreet after all. Suddenly, I remember the sketchy vehicles that had been parked around town. I looked back at the vehicle. Yup, tinted windshield. I don't think I'm going to tell them. Nerves are already high, and abrupt panic probably isn't going to help us here. One thing's for sure though. The situation had gotten a lot more complicated. Is this asshole really following us? Unfortunately, they noticed. Shit, I muttered. This wasn't good. Nevertheless, both Mike and Rose were being rational about it. Although they were both visibly worried, they seemed to understand that freaking out wasn't going to help. Ignore them, I said. If they keep following us once we get into town, then I'll call the cops. Hang on, Rose began. You don't think they saw us leaving the apartment, do you? They probably did. Why? Stupid question on my part. We totally left a dead guy in there. Shit! Mike shouted upon realizing it. Maybe it's the cops themselves tailing us. That's dumb for so many reasons, Rose responded. Why would cops be following us to begin with? Who the hell knows what cops are thinking? They can't pin it on us, right? We didn't do anything. They don't know that. They could argue that we forcibly shoved the pills down his throat and left. Why would we do that? I don't know, Rose. Why the hell does anybody do anything? Alright, fucking relax. I raised my voice just a bit. They aren't cops, Mike. That's ridiculous. Okay, cop expert, then who is it? Mike responded. I didn't have an answer there. But I knew one thing was probably for sure. Whoever was following us was definitely worse news than the police. Try and shake him off, Mike told me. Yeah, no way in hell. I'm not a fucking stunt driver. As I had hoped, the vehicle trailed off once we got into town. As much as I appreciated the initial relief, this just meant we had another thing to worry about, another lingering issue. I thought back to the unfamiliar cars with tinted windows that had been parked around town. I didn't think about it too much in the moment, but the vehicle that had been tailing us had also been tinted. Shit, I thought. This whole situation was getting a bit too complicated for my liking. Not that this was an enjoyable experience to begin with. We parked at a nearby gas station, not wanting to reveal where any of us lived just yet. I still couldn't quite shake the feeling that we were being followed after all. Of course, Mike was against this. These motherfuckers probably know where we live already, he said. I say let them come. My shotguns need some dusting off. Okay, calm down there, Rambo, Rose replied. Before you get yourself killed, let's come up with a plan, an actual plan. We ended up driving over to Mike's apartment after a few uneventful hours. But before we could come up with anything at all, Mike and Rose ended up passing out. I had no idea how they found it in themselves to sleep. After everything that had happened, I simply couldn't. Paranoia was also starting to creep up on us, causing me to constantly check the street to see if anybody was out there waiting for us. But as the night went on, nobody showed up. Either that or they were doing a hell of a good job being discreet. But eventually I succumbed to fatigue myself. I woke up next to the windows, the sun stinging my eyes. Mike was cooking up breakfast sausages and Pop-Tarts in the kitchen. Breakfast of champions, I suppose. Okay, Mike said, through a mouthful of pork. Last night was bunk. What now? I suppose it was time for a shot in the dark. The forest. Mike and Rose weren't too enthused at the idea. Could hardly blame them. However, our options were running relatively slim. No other avenues to really investigate. Graffiti in the forest. Well, we're getting desperate, huh? Mike sighed, putting his head down. But he got up after only a few moments, grabbing his jacket. Desperate it is. I never really liked the forest. The place always spooked me as a kid. Can't say I'm too fond of it as an adult either. It just feels so claustrophobic, you know? Surrounded by dead trees, but exposed at every conceivable angle. Maybe I'm just weird. I tried to suppress those thoughts when we walked in. Where'd your brother say he found it? Rose asked. Near the creek. Very specific, Mike said. And what the hell are we supposed to do once we find it? I don't know, maybe we'll find a clue somewhere. The words came out of my mouth with zero confidence, and it was obvious. What the hell kind of clue were we supposed to be looking for? As we continued walking, we passed the time by contemplating what Mr. Blank might be. A serial killer? Perhaps we needed to look at it from a supernatural angle. Some kind of monster or demon maybe? But what was its connection to the theater? The whole situation was maddening to think about. Nothing made any sense. After about 20 minutes of inspecting each and every tree near the creek, we finally found it. The carvings that my brother was talking about. Huh, Mike commented upon seeing it. Pretty spooky. I couldn't disagree. It was more or less the way that my brother had described it. Very strange indeed. It was difficult to make out any real features of the man depicted in the carving. Well, I guess it was a man, humanoid at the very least. It appeared to be tall, wearing some kind of long, sweeping coat. There was a strange pattern covering the torso, almost looked like bones. Hard to tell given the nature of what we were looking at. And then there was the head, no facial features, blank if you will. And of course it was accompanied by the word stop scribbled all over. I could only describe the nature of the writing as distressed. Was it just a coincidence? I doubted that. What the hell are we getting into here? I heard Mike mutter under his breath. I looked over at Rose, trying to gauge her reaction as well. She certainly looked frightened as expected, but not in the same way that Mike was. The fear in her face appeared to stem from a more urgent matter. "Do you guys," she began asking. "Don't panic, but I'm pretty sure somebody's following us." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I realized something. We had been careless. Even though we were being tailed last night, we didn't bother carrying that caution over to the morning. Hell, I didn't even look over my shoulder when I'd first walked into the forest. Mike clicked his tongue loudly, looking agitated. "Okay, asshole, come out," he shouted. "Jesus, Mike," Rose and I said in unison. "I don't want to draw this out." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a pistol. Gotta come prepared. Learned that yesterday, didn't we? The next few moments comprised of a tense silence. Well, maybe not. I'm pretty sure everybody could hear my heart beating out of my chest. "All right." I flinched as a deeper voice called out. "All right." I flinched as a deeper voice called out from an indistinguishable location. "I suppose there's no point in keeping this up. I see you have a gun, kid. I'm coming out, so don't shoot." I could see movement within the maze of trees. Mike clicked the safety off and aimed the weapon toward the general area it was coming from. "Are you stupid?" he said. "Also, I'm 24, don't call me a fucking kid." Whoever had been following us didn't hesitate, continuing toward us. "It's not like your age makes you less of a kid. I've known 13-year-olds that I would consider men already, given what they've been through." The voice eventually revealed himself. He looked to be in his early 30s, dressed in a windbreaker and well-tailored pants. He was about a head shorter than Mike, with wavy hair, a clean-shaven face, and a world-weary look in his eyes. There was also a substantial scar running down his left cheek, but beyond that, he was probably one of the best-looking guys I've seen in my life. Not an important detail, but whatever. "You're not gonna shoot me, kid, so why do you stop pretending like you're even considering it?" he said, in just about the most confident tone I've ever heard in my life. Mike gripped the pistol, the veins bulging in his hand. "Don't push your luck." "I'll introduce myself," he said, ignoring the threat. He reached into his coat pocket, which made Mike flinch, and pulled out a pretty official-looking FBI badge and identification card. His first name was Finn, his thumb was covering up his last name. Maybe it was a conscious decision. "I'm not really concerned with whether or not you believe my credentials, but I'm curious. What are you kids doing out here?" "Why the hell should I tell you?" Mike asked, still trying to sound assertive. Savin sighed before looking at Rose. "Darling, could you please ask your friend to put the gun down? He's gonna get himself hurt." He looked back at Mike. "Keep it in your hand if it makes you feel safer, though." Rose obliged, nudging Mike. "Come on," she whispered. "That's not gonna end well." Mike mumbled something angrily before obliging himself. Savin nodded and smirked. "Now, regarding my question, what's the deal here?" He was certainly pretending like he didn't already know. "The missing people," I said. "I'm sure you're familiar with the rest of the details, probably more so than we are." He nodded before looking down. "Yeah, it's a strange case." Mike scoffed. "Strange? My sister's missing. If you know what the fuck's going on, then tell us." He looked back up at us, an inquisitive expression on his face. "Maybe that's something I'm trying to figure out myself." And that's when he dropped the bombshell on us. He wasn't actually here on official business, he was essentially after the same thing that we were. This wasn't the first instance of Mr. Blank causing somebody to disappear. His fiancée, Sarah, had gone missing a few years prior, hauntingly similar circumstances. He tried looking into it, but his higher-ups told him to stay away, and wouldn't give him any information or leads. Mr. Blank was an utterly classified topic. Ever since then, he'd been chasing after answers, trying to unravel this obscure mystery, but not with much luck. However, there was an opportunity here. This was the first time that Mr. Blank had made an appearance since his fiancée went missing. Without telling any of his fellow agents and without the discretion of his higher-ups, he'd come here to conduct his own investigations, all while attempting to stay hidden from the agents already posted here. The tinted vehicles, I muttered. That's why they're here? Yup, he said. They don't want anybody prying. Probably for the best, but for obvious reasons, I can't stay away. Yeah, likewise, I said. So it was you following us last night? He raised an eyebrow before shaking his head. Sounds like you've caught their attention. Shit. Then why are you following us now? Rose asked. He looked at Mike. You're Mike Karen, right? Mike gave a slight nod. Lacey Karen was one of the people who went missing. I was aware of the whole thing. I took a shot, assumed that you would try doing something about it. When I saw you guys leave town yesterday, I got even more curious. I couldn't have followed without giving myself away though, so I kept an eye on your apartment. And then you walked into the forest first thing in the morning. Interesting behavior, for sure. So prove my intuition right. What do you know? Because I'd love to know as well. His tone had taken an intense turn. It was pretty obvious he was driven by passion, which I could understand, even if mine was to far lesser degree than his. Truth be told, we really don't have much, I told him. I felt embarrassed even considering showing him the tree carving as some kind of evidence. Perhaps my passion really was clouding my judgment. Maybe we were really just grasping at straws here. But then Sven took a look at it himself. I expected him to scoff, possibly make some sarcastic comment to the effect of, "Good job guys, you really cracked the case here." But instead of doing that, he began studying the carving rather intently. After a few minutes, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "Look familiar?" he said, showing it to us. After nearly gagging at the initial sight, I had to admit that it was. A tall humanoid, sweeping coat, skeleton torso, blank face. This time it was drawn in blood on a dirty basement wall. There was also a man with his entrails leaking out, kneeling down towards it. "Fuck," I muttered, trying to hide how much I was shivering. "You sure you're supposed to be showing us this?" "I'm not supposed to be doing a lot of stuff right now," Sven replied. "But here we are. What the hell is it, a crime scene?" Sven nodded. 2.5 years ago, about the same time Sarah went missing. Don't know the details because I wasn't there. Risked everything to get my hands on this. Despite how gruesome it was, the crime scene pretty much confirmed that there was some kind of connection here. But the question remained, what now? Where do we go from here? "Guys," Rose spoke up. "Check it out." She pointed to another tree up ahead, maybe about 20 feet away. Could it be? I thought, approaching it. It was. A similar carving had been scribbled into it, the same figure, the same word. I began scanning the area once again. There was another tree, a bit farther away this time, and then another one, and then another. The four of us began following the carvings like breadcrumbs right towards what had to be the culprit behind him. We didn't even hesitate, didn't stop to ask questions. We were driven by sheer impulse at the revelation. But clearly, Sven was paying more attention than us. After a few minutes, I felt him put a hand on my shoulder. "Wait," he said. "What? Why? You have a gun, don't you?" "So does Mike, we'll be fine." "Not that," he said. "Look forwards, but stay calm." And then I saw it. There was something up ahead. A large figure doing a poor job of hiding behind a thin tree. I could see a large, pale, bony hand twitching erratically as it drooped near the ground. A quiet but shrill voice suddenly began filling the air around us, like a combination of a high-pitched radio frequency and some kind of deranged laugh. I suddenly remembered what Jay had told us before he died. He's already on his way. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Now, if you want more context for this story that I just finished up about Mr. Blank, u/Mr_outlaw_ actually has a couple more parts to it. I didn't want to read them all because it got kind of long and I didn't want to crowd the video with just one story. But if you want to finish the story yourself, please go read his content and please go check out every author that I've read today. Thank you so much for listening or watching though, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great night, everyone, and sweet dreams.